Hey everybody, it's Hannah. Hi, I wanted to first of all do just a few little housekeeping announcements. So we survived the tsunami just fine. Nothing happened. Nothing happened here at my house, and where I live basically is kind of like on the high ground, and there's a big cliff between us and the ocean, and it was fine. So anyone who was worried, thank you, we're fine. Um, Second of all, I am really pleased to be seeing some comments and engagement roll in on some of my videos. And there's no, as far as I'm concerned, there's no bad comment. Like, there's people commenting in good faith and bad faith. And I'm just really happy to have such a new little project with my videos here and to see some traction. And I'm happy to engage with everybody no matter what kind of place they're. I'm happy to do a little like fencing match or like comment back to you in good faith. But it's just really fun. It's really fun to live in a time where we can kind of put our ideas out there and like hear from other people that are kind of like on the same wavelength or thinking the same thing or complimenting me on my jugs or like whatever you want to do. Like, I'm kind of down for all of it. And a couple years ago, like in 2021, I wanted to kind of have a little show. This is a format that I really, things come back to me wanting to cultivate myself and like certain traits and abilities for myself. Like, that's what creativity and the creative impulse comes down to. And, like with this, for instance, I would like to refine my ability to sort of create essays that are thoughtful and nuanced, but verbal. And so I'm hoping to actually avoid a lot of editing. If I get way off on a tangent, it sucks or something, then obviously I'm gonna like help the viewer out with editing that. But I'm working on an ability here, to deliver information that I want to broadcast, that I want to share. But I had stood something up and it was like more professional and more polished and had a better backdrop and like all kinds of things. And like within 4 or 5 episodes, I got deplatformed by YouTube. And I wasn't even, this was kind of during like 2021 was like during the peak, like everybody getting canceled and like you can't say the wrong thing. And I was being careful. I mean, I was talking about what I wanted to talk about, but I felt like I was being careful. And I think the one episode that actually was the straw that broke YouTube's back, which was only 4 or 5 straws in, was like I was saying that Bitcoin is kind of like the new like nuclear arms race where just, every country kind of has to have it. Like, even if you're a country that doesn't want to have it, if other countries have it, then you have to have it. Or now you're like, the train is leaving the station without you. And like, everybody's kind of getting that. Like, nations sorting themselves out on the geopolitical, financial, global level with Bitcoin specific. Like, that's not even something to cancel somebody over. But I did. I got deplatformed. And, and I'm still passionate about Bitcoin. Like yesterday, I recorded a video, like while the tsunami was coming. I didn't know what was going to happen because I was like, well, I want my last like act on earth to be like to talk to the internet about Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Like, I am passionate about it. And so I'm like a little bit jaded now. I haven't created like a nice backdrop. I didn't do all the work, to do the thing that I did before because I'm like, I just got shut down, kind of takes you a little bit to bounce back from that. Now I'm just like hook my phone to like a utility shelf that I have here and talk to you guys. But anyway, I do appreciate the engagement. I've been putting stuff out for years, and I really get buried under the algorithm. And if I didn't want to get buried under the algorithm, then I would have to have like a more laundered set of perspectives or sensibilities, and that's not going to happen. So, I've been putting out music, I've been putting out blogs, like different things, and it's just not like they usually just disappear. It's just nice, to have a little bit of engagement. So I appreciate that, and if I'm not harvesting engagement, like I'm doing this for me, but like if you want to drop a comment or something like that, it's really cool. I really appreciate it. I'm like, oh, there's people out there, Sorry, I have bugs landing on me. So I'm kind of walking myself into like increasingly challenging subject matter because that's what I like to do and that's what I like to talk about, and kind of like more deeply personal to my psychology in ways that are hopefully engaging, but that I could see could be off-putting, So I talked about strength training. I think probably like 8 out of 10 people like don't want to hear about that. So that's, from like a marketing broad appeal standpoint. You know, then I talked about HRT and like supplementing testosterone, and probably 9 out of 10 people like don't want to hear about that. Then I talked about Bitcoin. That's like 10 out of 10 people don't want to hear about Bitcoin. I know that. And then today I'm going to kind of sneak up on this, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to come at it from a different angle because this is the angle that matters to me. But if I were to just kind of like do it the normal way, I think like 11 out of 10 people don't want to hear about this from me. But you know, this is for me. And if you like it, then that's even better. You know, that's fine. So I can't promise you, like a super polished delivery here, but this is some stuff that really matters to me. So PSYOPs and derangement syndromes. PSYOPs and derangement syndromes. I'm lucky in a way because I consider myself lucky because I sailed through. I mean, there's like PSYOPs like every other day now, but I think the one that probably stands out in our minds, and if this doesn't stand out in your mind as a PSYOP, then I'm sorry, is COVID. You know, like I call it the fake pandemic. I'm not saying that anybody who got sick from it, that was fake sickness. Whatever COVID is or isn't, I think I've had it probably twice. I mean, I've never gotten tested ever in my life, nor will I ever. You're not going to stick some shit up my nose, you know? Were they trying to like anal swab people in China or something? It was like, this is a global humiliation ritual and it's a global IQ test. Like, come on. I appreciate if you, for whatever you're doing, you had to have a swab stuck up your nose, but I came in and out of Hawaii and like all kinds of, like, I never signed up for that shit. I never had somebody stick a swab up my nose. That's rape. Sorry, that's rape. That's an orifice of your body. No. So, you know, I got something, I guess, that seems like COVID in 2019, like before it was even a thing, like late 2019. It was like a really bad flu. I'm not prone to get sick at all. It was a really bad flu that lasted a long time, and I lost all my sense of like smell and taste, you know, and I had a lot of fatigue and stuff. That was weird, right? That was really weird. And then later on that spring, the whole world was like, oh my God, COVID. And the symptoms of that were migrating around depending on what the MSM said that they were, you know. And then about 2 or 3 years, I think like 2023, like after my fire season, I got really sick again with a fever. And I lost my sense of taste and smell, and I was like pretty fatigued for a while, even after I was sick, even after I got better. So I don't know, you know, like I apparently, you know, I got put in Facebook jail and everything. I mean, like I've been in Facebook jail so many times now, but you know, for like talking about like lab leak theory, and now that's apparently like a thing that we can totally talk about and reference, and you know, so when I call it the fake pandemic, I'm talking about the PSYOP element of it, where I was like, this is fake as shit. Like, this is fake and gay. This is so fucking fake. Like, right from the beginning. And I was like, just wait. Like, there's going to be some kind of, this is like a huge scare tactic. I had never up until that point been like so incredibly like censored, like algorithmically on social media. But at the same time, I also hadn't experienced the kind of like derangement syndrome from people on social media that was wild. I mean, that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. I had actually experienced that level of derangement syndrome, but like not in this context. And those weren't bots. Like, those are people that I've known for years from like my hometown and stuff. And they were like out of their fucking minds, you know. They couldn't like not just be like frothing at the mouth, you know. They could not have a discussion. They couldn't like let it be okay for somebody else to have a different opinion. And I was even despite my long history, which I will tell you about with encountering derangement syndromes and PSYOPs, which kind of comes back to like a surprising thing in my childhood, I still I was so nice. I'm like kind of a motherfucker now. Like honestly, I really am. I'm still nice, but I just won't entertain certain kinds of conversations because now I think if you're like me, like we've gotten to this point where you realize you're not actually talking to a person. You're talking to like Agent Smith, who's like jumped into this person's body, and they're saying CNN taglines to you, and you're so there's no point. There's no point going forward with that. That's not. But they have all the rhetoric, you know, like you're not allowed to be in an echo chamber. Like you have to argue with me, or else you're just this bad person who's like separating yourself and like only hearing your own opinions and stuff like that. You know, so maybe you're like me and like earlier on you kind of tried to negotiate these kinds of conversations with people because you did know them, like you have like all kinds of history with them, and then probably like me, you know, at a certain point you just tapped out and you're like, I guess I am killing grandma. I guess I am a super spreader. I guess I am a Nazi. I guess I am a racist. I guess I am a misogynist. I guess, you know, I guess I am like a far right white nationalist, or like the names that they call you for just like considering ideas just like evolve and get like more and more hysterical. I guess I am literally Hitler. Like, turns out that guy's transcribed speeches are like pretty fucking interesting once you start noticing like the cultural Marxism that's been happening. Like none of this was, there's been a lot of things on my radar like growing up because of my like unusual circumstances growing up and everything, but a lot of it wasn't, you know. And I was blessed, my brother and I were blessed to be raised by parents who were, we didn't call them this or know them, that they didn't call themselves this, but like looking back, it's like they were like stone cold conspiracy theorists. My mom less so, like she was just a complete like spiritual nihilist, but our dad was also a complete spiritual nihilist, still is, but he was talking to me and my brother about the dollar collapsing and Pizzagate and sinkholes in the earth that nobody talks about, and people like David Paulides or whatever, like people fucking disappearing in the wilderness, like all kinds of things, like our whole childhood, like our whole life, our whole adulthood. He was like talking about this stuff. He like David Icke, you know, like the royal families are reptiles, and like we were like, okay, like that's a lot, you know. He called 9/11 like right from the beginning. I'm a little bit worried. Like I feel like I might still be deplatformed by YouTube because of my previous experience. So I guess I'm gonna fuck around and find out. I've seen some other people's videos on YouTube that are, they've been up for years, and I'm like, how does that guy get to talk about that, and I don't get to talk about Bitcoin as a nuclear arms race? Like, so we'll just see. But yeah, my dad called 9/11. I mean, he was like, I don't know exactly what happened, but it's not that. It's not the official story. And I just can't emphasize enough that me and my brother were like, I mean, we were working adults. We still are. We are trying to pay our bills. We're trying to hold down a lot of real estate. We are in a system of fiat decay. We are like fighting for our lives. Like we are trying to figure out how to be like happy, healthy, like spiritually and creatively productive people, like against all these challenges. And some of the stuff that our dad told us, we were like, that might be true. I don't know what to do with that, you know. Or Sylvia Ivanova talking about how like so many of the sort of like academic, especially like official narratives about history, like about the Sphinx, about all kinds of things, the Roman aqueducts, like all kinds of things, like that's like fake history. Tartaria, you know, that's we like our entire actual kind of curiosity and contrasting perspectives and theories about everything from like more recent type civilization to even like back into the Ice Age and like the, you know, all that kind of thing, that those have been distorted and then codified into sort of an official narrative, and you just like, you're not going to get anywhere professionally as an academic or as a person who studies history or artifacts or archaeology or like these different kinds of things if you don't sort of like cuck to that system, you know. And so again, just my brother and I we weren't like opposed. Our dad is like one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life, and also one of the most unpredictable, like ideologically, like you just don't know, you know. He's a real one for sure. And we were like, I don't know, man, I'm just trying to pay the bills here. Like, it seems like the dollar is still fine. I don't know what else I'm supposed to do with that, you know? So we had this influence. We had this influence, and thankfully, and a lot of that, I mean, now it's at the point where my dad has called so many things correctly, and he's been right about so many things that right around, you know, like in the 2020, like 2021 time frame, my brother and I were like, we better like shut the fuck up and start listening to our dad, you know? Like, he seems to know some stuff, you know? And he's still got some stuff that's like way out there for us. He's still got some stuff that's like a little too far out there for us. And we're like, I hope that's not true, because the other stuff turned out to be true. But anyway, like early in the fake pandemic, I was really observing these things that from these derangement syndromes from certainly not just like bots on the internet. I didn't even really know that was a thing yet, but like people that I actually do know who are like real people. And I was like, they're like fucked in the head. Like what got them? Like what happened? Like what happened to your brain, you know? Trauma-based mind control is what happened to their brain. Mass formation psychosis is what happened to their brain. And then there's the next question. You're like, why am I not experiencing that? Like, how did it just get you, you know? So I come from a nuclear family that has negotiated all of this like in a way that I'm so grateful, because these kinds of things have pitted people against their own families, where there's like one black sheep who gets it and the rest are like CNN zombies, and like I can only imagine the stress of that. And there has been a lot of stressful things about it, but I never had to negotiate that in terms of my specific nuclear family, and that's just huge, you know. So anyway, yeah, I kind of called it. I was like, all the fear porn about COVID, super spreaders killing grandma, you know, all these kinds of things. Like, just wait, there's going to be some kind of like miracle cure vaccine. And am I allowed to say that? See, I probably should have said jab, but I guess the cat's out of the bag now. There's going to be some fucking miracle vaccine, and everybody's going to be like celebrating and like, oh, a lot of pressure to take that. Now you're not going to be able to like work or something if you don't take that. And then like, boom, that's exactly what happened. I didn't get vaccinated. I think you can probably tell that I didn't sign up for that. And if you did, you know, and there's a lot of people that they were kind of like about it all the way along, and then they got to that point, and then they were like, you know what, this feels wrong, you know. So there's no wrong time. There's no wrong time to recognize a psyop. Like, there's no wrong time to wake up and be like, something's very deranged about this situation. Like, something is very like trauma-based mind control about this situation. So, like I said, I'm very happy to report. I feel very lucky to report that, like, not even close, you know, not even close did that stuff come to like getting me. And even, this is a little bit of a side tangent, but I feel like it's fascinating and worth saying. In 2021, I was doing a barbell workout on Mile and I had all these same perspectives like I've just shared with you. And we were in peak, you know, like vaccine frenzy mode then, as far as the world goes, and travel bans and restrictions, and, you know, everybody's supposed to do that. And I had lots of friends that were negotiating the possibility of losing their jobs or in the military and having to get out of the service or sign up for this, you know, and like, it was a very stressful time. I'm a truck driver, so you can't make us do anything. Like, you can go fuck yourself. If you try to get truck drivers to do things they don't want to do, like, you guys are already like so short on us, and you can't make us do anything. So, I mean, I was fine. But, yeah, so I was like between sets on my barbell workout. I was just sitting and resting. I wasn't even looking at my phone or anything. And all of a sudden I had this thought, and it was like a thought and a feeling at the same time, that was like, I should just go get vaccinated. I should just go get vaccinated. Like, why am I fighting this fight? I should just go get vaccinated. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I didn't even tell my dad and brother, who I lived with at the time, because I was like so embarrassed that this like dirty ass thought would even like be in my head, you know? I didn't mention it at all. Then the next day I was driving to Kona, and I was listening to a really short Cliff High little video that he put out, or I forget if it was like a podcast or video. Cliff High is a conspiracy analyst that's been, he goes off in the weeds about all kinds of shit, like lots of times. He's like a real weird, it's like a real like schizo weirdo. But damn, that guy has what he calls some Alta reports from back in the day that he basically, he's like a genius. Like he compiled some kind of program that's able to sort of like aggregate the data from the entire like cybersphere of like all the like human chatter that's going on. And his premise is that humans are actually psychic. We don't know that we're psychic, and it doesn't really tend to benefit us in our lives. But there's this sort of like herd twitch that can happen where, like, if you like aggregate and analyze like the language, then you can predict certain trends, because humans ourselves as a herd are predicting certain trends. And I think he first got the idea for this. He was like on an airplane that got struck by lightning, a passenger plane, but everyone on the plane reacted to the lightning strike like before it actually happened. And he was like, what's that? And I think also this thing involved like a bunch of LSD on his part, something like that. Anyway, doesn't matter. That's Cliff High. If you're a fan, then you know what I'm talking about. But I was driving to Kona and I was listening to him, and he just dropped this really quick video to say that 6 different unrelated to one another psychics had contacted him in the last 24 hours. And 2 of them were married, so it kind of counts as 5, but it's 6, whatever. And they had all said independently of one another, because he's got a platform, so he's a guy that they reached out to. They said, I received a thought attack. And the thought attack went along the lines of, go get vaccinated, go get vaccinated. And he was like, that's out there, you know? And then I was like, damn, that's like crazy validating, you know? I'm over here in Hawaii, like we don't even really have chemtrails. I guess we kind of do. Like, I don't know if we do on my island. I've never seen any on my island, but like we don't have a lot of 5G. We don't have a lot of chemtrails. Like, it's like a pretty great place to be in certain ways, right? And I was just like sitting on my lanai between sets, and I got this thought attack, you know, that absolutely had no chance of like hitting with me, but it happened. And it happened sharply enough for me to actually like register it. You know, I mean, if I was in a different mindset and I was kind of in a gray zone and I was like, maybe I am killing grandma, maybe I am a super spreader, you know, like I probably would have thought that was my own thought, but it wasn't my own thought. And so I called my, at the time, ex-boyfriend, or my boyfriend. We were separated. He later on died later that year, because we had separated because of his downward spiraling drug addiction problems that were happening. And he had become very volatile to be around. But he felt the same as me. On all, like, that was one of the things that I really missed about that relationship, is like we completely saw eye to eye on pretty much all this stuff. And I told him about my experience with having this like thought attack, and he had also had the same thing. And he was like, that's so crazy that you said that, because he was like, I was like squatting, of course, and like I had the same thought, and I was like, that's what is wrong with my brain that I even had that thought, you know? So these kinds of psyops, I mean, there's a lot of ways to gin them up, and there's a lot of ways to get people with them that really only require repetition and like an enemy, like identifying an enemy and then identifying another thing as a solution. And like, people are really quite addicted to their social cohesion. I think that that's what got a lot of people right there, is that even if they themselves, I think there's so many people in this camp, like all the way along, they had their own private reservations, and things just kind of got crazier and crazier, where then, you know, like then you get deplatformed on social media for sharing a study that was published by the NIH. You know, now it's like, okay, now the CDC said something and like we're all supposed to like obey that, but now they said something that's counter narrative, and then now you're deplatformed for that. So like, who's determining? Like, now there is a narrative, and we don't know. There's some shadowy like overlords, possibly reptilian, fucking I don't know, that are like establishing the narrative and like matching things up to it and like discarding other things, and you will be matched up to it or you will be discarded, as far as your like access to social media, your access to making shitty YouTube videos, your access to work even, you know, based on your adherence, and that you obey, you know? So damn, just like what a crazy thing. So people, yeah, people are very, very uncomfortable, and this is kind of getting into like what's germane here to my talk. If you can hang with me, if you could like believe that there is something germane here. um People's desire for social cohesion and to not like rock the boat, and to not be basically like ostracized from the tribe, from the herd, will overpower almost any intellectual process that they have. And I watched this with my own two eyes, and I was like, damn, that sucks. Like, I mean, I did have the benefit of I wasn't going to be ostracized from my family, because they're fucking worse than me, you know? Like, we're all like this. So I can't entirely speak to like whatever my level of like cojones is about this, you know? But I know that I'm it seems that I've become through the years, and this goes back to my early childhood thing that I'm going to get into, comfortable enough with being ostracized socially, which you actually aren't, because if you get on the other side of things and you find out there's all the other people there, you like if you're a black sheep and you're like, oh fuck, all the white sheep like fuck me off, and like now I'm going to be alone, and then you find the other black sheep and you're like, oh, they're cooler anyway, you know? So being ostracized socially, like, isn't even that bad, because then there's, you know, there's always people on the other side of that. But people are just so scared of it, you know, they're so scared of it. And I think that kept people in, like, it kept people mute, like, even if they might grumble privately, you know. And at least in the United States, things never got as bad. Got pretty bad. It's still not great, but like, it didn't get as bad with the First Amendment here as it obviously has gotten, and it still is getting, in like Canada and the UK and stuff like that. Like, those people, they're disarmed too. I don't know what they're gonna do. Like, I don't know what those guys are gonna do. It's ugly. It's really ugly. Anyway, so so yeah, like, a psyop and a derangement syndrome it's different from a healthy dialogue. Like, people can have different opinions, and those opinions can even be informed by their chosen source of media, and then you can agree to disagree, or you can agree to fucking hate each other's guts. But it's still, you know, there's like this kind of gray zone where it's like it stopped being like a healthy debate or even an unhealthy debate, and it started being a derangement syndrome. I think we probably, if you're watching this video still at this point, then you probably like understand what I'm talking about. And so, yeah, so sailed through that. I mean, I had a lot of the other things going on that were hard, but I sailed through that whole psyop like pretty smoothly. And thank God I don't have to be one of those people that like every time I work out or sprint or something, I'm like wondering if my heart's gonna explode because I took a fucking experimental bioweapon. And then there's the Trump derangement syndrome. And I'd say, you know, it's like 99% of the Trump derangement syndrome is negative to Trump, like hostile to Trump, obviously. But there is a Trump derangement syndrome that is the other way. Probably if you kind of live on the internet a little bit like I do, like, you probably have seen the video of that guy. He was getting pulled over by a cop, and I think he had a bunch of drugs in the car, something like that. And he like set up his phone. He was like recording like as the police officer was coming up, and he was like praying to Trump to like save him from this getting pulled over by the cop thing. Like, that's a derangement. In the positive direction to Trump. But far more often I've encountered derangement in the adversarial fashion with Trump. And that's not an accident. So the trauma-based mind control machine, which is the MSM, which is the state-funded media, which is the Moloch protocol, like entirely like spun up, you know, this Trump derangement syndrome. And there are certainly criticisms to be made about Trump. Like, I would never like take that away from somebody. But when you have an informational warfare environment, like on this like CIA, like Project Mockingbird level, that's like hammering on this, the literal trauma-based mind control, that goes out of the range of a healthy or even unhealthy discussion, and all the way to a derangement, you know, to a psyop. So I think my craziest experience with that, I mean, I've had a lot of crazy experiences, but like the one that really stands out is I was at Safeway in line checking out with my groceries in Kona. This was in 2023, okay? And most people weren't wearing masks anymore by then. And there was the guy in line in front of me. He was actually like actively being checked out by the cashier. He was wearing a mask, and he was like an older white guy. And I wasn't paying much attention. I just like rolled up with my groceries, and he wouldn't get his shit off the conveyor belts. And so there seemed to be some kind of holdup, and I was just kind of like checking the price of Bitcoin or something on my phone. And he was really holding forth, and he was really talking about like Obama is the best president we ever had. I don't know why this guy goes to Safeway and he's talking about politics. And it was really clear that the cashier was just trying to like get him checked out and like move him through, you know? And she was wearing a mask too. I talked to her later. It turns out she was like actively sick, so she was just trying to be respectful, but she wasn't like libtarded or anything. She was actually a huge Trump fan. And so I think he saw her, she was the only other one in the store wearing a mask, and he was like, I'm going to talk about like how much I'm going to like suck Obama's dick. Like he was like so into Obama, you know? And she was like, okay, mister. And then he got himself into a derangement state, and he said, ooh, if I ever see that Trump, I mean, he's kind of muffled, it's like kind of hard to hear him because of the mask, but he was like, if I ever see that Trump, if I ever see that Trump, like of his own, like no one was feeding into this, you know? And he like basically did this like finger gun thing, and he like double shot her in the head, the cashier. He like headshot like twice, and he was like, poof, poof, that's what I'm gonna do. I mean, with his fingers like inches away from her forehead, he was like, poof, poof, that's what I'm gonna do. That's what I'm gonna do, right? And then he kind of like looks around, and then he like, I was like, oh my God. He started talking some more shit. I stayed out of it. I'm like, I'm trying to get my groceries. And then he basically like leveled down on me, and he's going to finger gun shoot me in the forehead, talking about how that's what he would do with Trump. And that's when I said, I'm 100% Trump, 100% Trump. And that's all I had to say. And then he went into like a rage, like you would see in like a bullfighting, kind of like his eyes went red. His mask actually started like huffing in and out of his mouth from like how much he was like hyperventilating. And he just like, he fucking went crazy. It was like, woo, he went crazy. And he just like started screaming, and he like kind of like lunged towards me a little bit, but my cart was in the way. And I was so ready to just like bang the shit out of him with my cart. But my little dog was in the cart too. So I didn't really want to like stress her out. But he was like losing his mind. Like he was like actually about to lose his grip on reality. And I wouldn't have even said anything because I don't consider Safeway checkout line to be a place to discuss politics at all, especially in a time that's so like biased and fraught. But I'm like, no, you're not gonna finger gun shoot me in the head. Like, I'll fucking kill you, like, for reals. Like, I actually had to watch my ass in the parking lot because after all this was over, you know, like, I mean, I could go into it, but just imagine, like, this man having, like, the hugest meltdown you've ever seen, and, like, the, like, store security getting involved and stuff. Like, I was, like, pushing my cart out into the parking lot. It was at night, and I was looking all around because I was like, I bet this guy's going to try to just, like, run me down or something. Nothing happened, so I guess I'm being dramatic. But I was, like, I was watching my six for sure. So, you know, that's an example. That's an example of a derangement syndrome where it's, I have one opinion, you have another. Your opinion is that I'm not allowed to have this opinion, and that I'm like the devil. I'm like Hitler, and I'm like the devil if I have this opinion, you know, and that's crazy. That's literally crazy. You can't function in a democratic society, or a, you know, whatever it is that we're calling our society these days. It's that's a whole nother discussion. Anyway, so back to like, I mean, now I'm recognizing, like, there's been so many psyops. Like, once you kind of like get the sense of it, it starts, you're like, what, that whole like Las Vegas shooter thing, you know, there's like an official cover story. There's like, oh, this one lone guy just like did all this crazy stuff, and this is what happened. And like, there's people that have made like interactive maps about all of the 911 calls that happened all around that area that night. And it's like, clearly the Lahaina fire, you know, like, maybe that was a totally natural fire, I don't know, but like, why is the guy who was like the dude with the Las Vegas shooting then also the police chief in Lahaina, like same people recycling? You get into the concept of like crisis actors, where like people start noticing there's like the same person that over here they're a victim who lost their son and a whatever, and now they're this person over here, and they're just like paid actors And there was so much of this going on during the fake pandemic, you know, where there was a camera crew filming people in like biohazard suits, like loading up corpses or whatever. And then everybody else is just like walking around like a normal person. This is infotainment. This is infotainment. I know I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but so that 9/11 was its own thing. I would say back at that point, you know, my dad was like, that's a fucking psyop. And me and my brother were kind of like, I don't know. Like we didn't really like lean into it. We didn't really lean out of it. We were just like, I don't know, man. I don't know. It definitely seemed, you know, served as a pivotal, like societal focus, like spell that was cast to like galvanize like certain military actions and horrible outcomes for everyone involved in the military industrial complex, you know, so that we can all fight and die for Israel. It seems to be a common theme. Anyway, so what I really wanted to talk about is that I'm vegan, right? I'm vegan, and I'm actually not. I eat eggs. For many years I didn't, but I have found it necessary, like fire camps and stuff like that. And it's just a form of like nutrition that I appreciate, and I'm willing to include that. And like, you know, if the vegan police were gonna like, they would be unhappy with that. There's no such thing as a vegan police, but everybody's at where they're at, you know. And I'm like really, really OG with this. I know that this is a crazy left turn for you because you're like, I didn't think this was going to be about diet. And now I'm going to be talking about what, like my cholesterol or something. No, I'm not. This is relevant. This is relevant. So, I apparently like declared precocious vegetarianism when I was like 5 or 6. I remember some parts of it. I don't entirely remember. I just remember being really shocked when I first found out, and I'm not sure how I first found out that like meat came from animals, but I found that out and I was like, well then no. And I didn't have a lonely childhood in terms of like my nuclear family. We've always been really tight. My brother's always been like my best friend, you know, and that's still the case. So in terms of my family, like I've always felt very like at home and loved unconditionally. But in terms of like all the other kind of like social things that kids are supposed to have or people are supposed to have, no, not really. We moved a ton. My dad was initially in the oil field like during my like younger years, and then he had to get out of that because it went bust, and he went back into school teaching, and then like we moved to a shitty place in Oklahoma, and he like had a year there, and then we moved to the Navajo reservation, and then we lived there. And I think by the time I was like 18, I lived in like 21 different houses, and I wasn't even invested in like school friends, you know, because they were just people that came and went, and school kids were like kids that were mean to me on my first day of school because I had so many first days of school that I just didn't, whatever is the thing that you do, you know, if you just like kind of stay in one place and like grow up around the same group of people, and the things that you appreciate about that or the ways that you like acclimate yourself to that and like become part of that group or whatever, I just was like caused to be like somewhat feral in that regard. And all the way along, I just appreciated animals so much, and animals were always this is something I remember from like as far back as I have any memories whatsoever. Animals were my favorite people. Animals were my favorite people. Any animal that I met, you know. I didn't grow up on a farm, unfortunately. My family was very like literally transient, you know. We lived in sometimes apartments, sometimes we lived in a tent, sometimes we lived in like a converted school bus, sometimes we lived in like an underground like cellar thing, like all different houses, and like not always with electricity. Like I grew up like, you know, a pretty like healthy fraction of that, like without utilities, without electricity, without running water, you know, which is unusual for somebody these days to have had that experience, who came from the first world. I mean, this was the first world, right? My parents at the same time were also both master's degrees holders and were like highly literate, and we read books all the time. They read books to us, and then we learned to read, and then we read books to them, and we're always fucking reading to each other, and we're all about books. And my dad's all about philosophy and like religion and spirituality, and our mom was like really savvy, and she was really into like, you know, show tunes, and not show tunes, but you know, what do you call it, like Camelot, My Fair Lady, like musicals, you know, kinds of scores like that, like piano. There was a shitty piano that got dragged around a whole bunch. There was music, there was guitars, there was a lot of books, just a lot of books, and an encouragement for us to write. Like me and my brother were like writing little books and stuff like when we were young. So it was like this kind of odd mix of being like absolute, like financially and just sort of lifestyle wise, we were like absolute white trash with like no utilities, you know, and like no friends to speak of, and just like here and then gone. And then on this other level, like this really, really rich family environment, you know, and we were definitely like health food kids. Like our parents, they were like, we don't really know much, but we're not gonna be taking our kids to the freaking doctor all the time. So, and they just didn't. They just, even when we got sick, and even when we got tonsillitis, and even when we were like at death's door, they were like, figure it out. Like we didn't ever go to the doctor. Not ever. We never went to the doctor. So that was interesting. I never even had an aspirin until I was like in college. You know, my mom would give us like willow bark tablets, and we only had natural foods, and my mom would never buy anything at the grocery store that was more than 3 ingredients. And they had their own like grain mill that my mom would like grind the grain and then like make the bread. Like we never had store-bought bread. We never had store-bought tortillas. We never had store-bought anything. We never had candy. We never had soda. We never had nothing. We were like really health food kids, you know, which, as you can imagine, it was exciting for us to have slumber parties if we were ever invited. I mean, we were kind of also, I guess me and my brother were like a little bit off-putting. Like we weren't like on the MVP list at any of these fucking places with these people to like be invited to their slumber parties, but sometimes it happened, and we were like, oh my God, it's Wonder Bread and it's candy, you know. But yeah, we were very, very health food kind of family, but my parents weren't vegetarian. And so somehow, yeah, early in this whole thing, I found out that meat came from animals, and animals were my favorite people. I just wanted to be around animals all the time. Like all of the problems of all these new schools and all these new kids, and it wasn't even just the new schools and the new kids, it was like the new teachers and the new lunch ladies and the new church ladies, and it wasn't great. Like I didn't, aside from my family, like I wasn't having a good time, bro. I was straight up not having a good time. And very, very introverted and very prone to just like read little books and stuff. Anyway, so I was shocked to find out that everybody's just out there eating animals. And so I just like was like, well, I'm not gonna, you know. And my parents being how they weren't like helicopter parents by, I mean, I just got done telling you that they were happy to see us just like lay in bed and die, but they weren't going to take us to a doctor. Like they weren't like fussing over us that much, you know? So they were like, go on with your bad self, like figure that out, you know? And so it wasn't like they went to whatever dumbass hick town school we were in and like advocated for me or anything. They were just like, all right. So then I went on to have, this, I know this seems unrelated to my previous discussion, but it is. I went on to have this series of experiences, like many experiences, navigating the world as a very, very young, self-declared vegetarian for ethical reasons. And I had all these experiences that I didn't call them psyops at the time. I didn't call like carnivore, omnivore carnivore, like ideology, like a psyop at the time. I didn't have that language. I wouldn't have called it a derangement syndrome at the time, but it couldn't be described as a simple exchange of information or as a simple agree to disagree, you know. There was like really weird stuff that happened, and I negotiated all of it, and I just stayed true. There was, I'm not like tooting my own horn or anything. I'm just saying it was so strong for me that I love animals, and I don't want to inflict additional violence on them. I'm not gonna. If you guys want to do that, that's fine. I'm not gonna do it now that I understand this connection. And I just like really, not only did I stay in my lane with that, but I would do everything to avoid even having it come up. But when you sit down and I mean, in school I did a lot of like trading. Like I would like trade my meat for extra green beans or whatever I had to do to like get enough calories to like survive the afternoon, you know? So I was somewhat popular in that sense. Basic training, the same thing later on. But I mean, I grew up basically in Oklahoma in the 80s, okay? Like beef belt, Bible belt, that kind of mentality, small town, hick down, that kind of thing in the 80s. And I was born in 76. and it wasn't like people wouldn't just leave me alone. Like I would sit down and my plate would look how it would look and not have the thing. And I even learned like not to even bring this up with the lunch ladies because I was like hazed by them my first day at a new school. Like I was like, hold the turkey, like I'm not going to eat it anyway. I didn't want to waste it, you know. And then this was 5th grade, first day at a school. Like the lunch lady like came out from behind the thing. And she like marched me over to a table and she put the turkey on my tray. She took it. She marched me over to a table, you know, like the little like segmented trays that are like pastel colors. She fucking slammed it down. She had me sit down and she like literally force fed me some turkey and I was crying. And the whole lunchroom stopped what they were doing and like looked. This is a fucking spectacle. And she was like, you will eat the turkey. You have to eat the turkey. And she was like, chew it. And she told me to swallow it. And I didn't swallow it. I spit it out. And she was like, you have to, like, what's she going to do? Hit me? She didn't hit me, you know? But, yeah. Because in my old school, I had just, the lunch ladies at least kind of knew. They were like, that's the girl that's going to, I would either ask for, if it was an attractive meat, like that I knew I could trade, then I would go ahead and get it. Because then I could get something else in exchange. If it kind of sucked and I knew that nobody wanted it, then I would just be like, I don't want that. And at my old school, that had been okay. Like, they had gotten used to me. And this was my first day at a new school, and I tried that, you know, and, like, it went horribly, horribly sideways. It was, like, literally very traumatic. And so I just didn't say anything anymore, you know? And, like, even before that, like, at the old school in 1st grade, my teacher had somehow got on her radar that, like, I wasn't eating meat. And she actually like brought me up to the front of the class and announced to everyone like Hannah's gonna die if she won't eat meat. I think it was eating almonds or something like that. There was like something that triggered it. And my mom would pack me these really nice lunches, you know. My parents never gave me any pushback. I mean, they didn't give me any help, but they were like, okay, that's fine. My brother shortly after declared vegetarianism too, because he just, you know, he hadn't really thought about it, but he was like, that is fucked up, right? So like, somehow I got all the flack. Like my brother kind of sailed through and had a different karma about this, but like I got all the flack, you know? So this 1st grade teacher like stood me up and like announced that I was going to die if I didn't eat meat. And she was like, you know, she had her like fat cellulite ass and those like polyester pants and looking exactly as you can imagine. And I, you know, it's weird. Like it wasn't possible to cow me. And like I was a very well-behaved little girl and I never got in trouble and I was smart and I got good grades and I pushed my chair in and I colored in the lines and I was polite at recess and I never did anything wrong, you know? Not because I was trying to be good, but because I just was good. Like I didn't have like a naughty bone in my body, you know? I was really kind of nerdy and a little bit like introverted, but I could play and be nice and stuff. But these kinds of like outrageous like shows of force would happen with these authority figures. There were some things that happened too with some church ladies, which I fucked off church like real early because of this. Nobody cares about animals less than a church, less than a religion. And they just, it's weird. It's like they couldn't, I didn't have any dilemma about it. I wasn't like, oh, she's Miss Cantrell says I was like, not for 1 second was I like, I'm going to do what you say, you know? I was like, I'll shut up about it, or I'll stop coming to school, or like whatever I got to do. Like, I'm going to do what I decided to do. Like, this was so strong for me. Like, I came in this way. And I've had many people talk to me about it, you know, like urging, because I'm like doing strength training, all kinds of stuff now, and being like, Hannah, you really need to. And I'm like, I'm not doing this for my health. I'm not doing this for my macros. I'm not doing this for the environment. I'm not doing this for cred. I'm not doing this because it's a trend. I just am someone who's not going to eat animals, you know? And dropping out dairy is a really good idea too. Like I said, I had to sort of add back in eggs, and that's, you know, that's another discussion, but I'm happy. I'm in equilibrium to have that in there, you know? But like, as far as like PSYOPs and derangement syndromes go, like, that's what I'm trying to say is like, this is a thing that I negotiated as like a really, really young person up against authority figures that absolutely had power over me, that was unilaterally considered to be like a bad idea, and that I needed to be fixed. Like I was broken and I needed to be fixed, you know? And it never wobbled. It never wobbled for me. Which is a really beautiful experience that, as much as challenging as it was, I mean, I haven't even like told you about like all the like stupid kinds of like hazing things that have happened to me, and it doesn't matter, you know? I think you got a sense of it. But like, I feel really lucky to have had that experience because of what it set me up for. And in a way, I would wish for everyone to have like a deep authenticity, like values, expression, like kind of epiphany or experience that isn't convenient because of what it shows you about yourself. Because if you don't ever have to negotiate something like that, and then you grow all the way up and you're a functioning adult, and then something like the fake pandemic happens, and then next thing you know, you're like quoting CNN at like somebody who's just trying to mind their own business on social media or whatever, like there's a level of absurdity, you know? It's a really, really fortunate experience that I had that I can't take credit for it or anything. It's just like, this is how I was made. But it's truly incredible the degree to which this set me up to recognize PSYOPs and recognize derangement syndromes. Vaccinations generally, like there's like, I received all my childhood vaccinations, but that's, my parents were like, you have to go to school, whatever. They weren't into it, just to be clear. They weren't like, this is a good thing. They were just like, my parents' basic attitude about stuff was like spiritually nihilistic. Like I said, they were just like, we all gotta like do this shit, like stupid. That they weren't like, oh, this is, you know, you should study hard and get good grades, because they were like, whatever, just whatever, you know? Like they knew that we were like children of God who came here and we're doing the best that we can, just the same way they're doing the best that they can, you know? Like we had a really like different kind of family culture. We would talk about our dreams and like all kinds of things. So, you know, like, yeah, like later on when I was like in college and like later on in grad school, I mean, I feel like the derangement syndrome around like childhood vaccines, because that's when like autism started getting like obviously really, really bad. And there was Jenny McCarthy that went on an interview, you know, because her son like suffered a vaccine injury and like came down with like really bad autism. And then she was able to kind of like walk him out of that with a little bit of TLC and stuff. And so this was all starting to kind of like, the Overton window was shifting a little bit where that was starting to kind of come out. I mean, now I think you're just like straight up retarded if you don't like get that connection, right? It's like so obvious. It's like 1989 that the childhood vaccination schedule like really significantly added a bunch more shots. And it was 1988 that Rain Man came out, I think, like clearly pre-paving in the public consciousness the idea of like autism is cool, autism is fine, like you're a jerk if you like speak against it, and you're definitely a jerk if you connect it to vaccines at all. Like that was a thing. And I remember having a crazy experience in grad school where we were displaced from our normal building. We were having to teach out of this elementary school. There weren't enough rooms, so like different teachers had to like, I taught English 105 and rhetoric and stuff like that, like at the university level there for a couple of years. And me and this other teacher had to like combine our classes like 2 days a week or 2 nights a week or whatever. And we would loosely get together with each other about like lesson plans, and it was time for rhetoric. And we were like, we can talk about like, you know, different kind of popular issue, like current issues, current, you know, controversial issues. That's always a great like hotbed for talking about rhetoric. Um, anyway, we ended up watching this Jenny McCarthy interview about her son and the vaccine injury and all of that. And like, I thought that the point was to teach rhetoric in terms of like, look at the like level of like triggering an attack, and like look at like she's providing like logos kind of based things. And like the other teacher had the other idea where she was like, so this lady's pathological, she's obviously crazy, we can all see that she's crazy. I was like, wait, that like we actually agreed on a lesson plan where we each assumed that the other was like thinking the same thing. Like that's when I hadn't quite realized like how deranged people were about resisting any kind of like notion that injecting like mercury and formaldehyde and like dead monkey cells or whatever, all those things, like aborted baby parts, like into kids, like from the time they're born, like all the way along, that might have some kind of like consequences with like manufacturers that are completely rendered immune from any kind of legal action, no matter what their stuff does to us. Like I was like, oh, like you're on the other side of that. Oh, okay. Like we had our classes were just completely like wrapped because we we basically had a little bit of a chick fight about it. We were both just like amazed at the other, and our classes were both like, oh, something exciting finally happened. Anyway, you know, so that's another one. So I really I this is crazy long, sorry. I just really feel grateful to my early experience of just having a values and actions like matchup experience where I just wasn't going to be shaken out of that no matter what anybody did, no matter what anybody said. And I've stuck to my guns on that this whole time. And it's not even, for me, it's not even a sticking to my guns thing. It's just like, that's just who I am. Like, that's not ever on the table for me. You know, like eating animals is like never, never, never on the table for me. It's not a willpower thing. People approach me with like weird kind of stuff. They're like, oh, like that must be so hard, or it's odd, you know. So it's engendered like all kinds of like discussions, really none of them which are interesting or relevant to me. Like people, they go rabbiting off and do their own thing. I even had a coworker that was like, what kind of food do you like? And he really didn't like me, and he was a dick to me all the time. And then he noticed that other people, the other coworkers liked me, and he felt very threatened by that because he wanted to be like Mr. Man, and he was like very like needy and like sort of extrovert, like wanted to be the center of attention all the time, you know, meet all kinds of personalities. And it seemed like other people liked me, and he just couldn't figure it out because he felt like I was like really dumb and boring. And so he came up to me and on a job site, I had like no way to escape, sitting in my truck. And he was like, well, he was trying to figure out like why people think I'm cool. And he was like, what kind of food are you into? Like what kind of restaurants? And I was like, well, I'm like vegan. So just whatever that is, you know, whatever I can find. And he was like, really? Why? And I basically said, and he goes, you know, I love steak. I love burgers. I love sausage. I love pork. He goes, I ate dog one time and it was good. And he goes, I've had turtle. He goes, I would eat a camel. I'd probably eat a giraffe. Like he was like, I would like to go around Africa and like try the different, I've eaten insects. He was like, I've tried insects. And so he went on this, it was like, I'm going to say like 10 minutes before I shut him down. Like he enumerated like every single kind of animal that he's eaten or would eat. And finally I was like, hey man, like I gotta go, like rolled up the window, you know. And it, like that's an extreme example, but like that's an example of the kinds of like whatever happens after this revelation that I don't eat meat, like in people's minds, it's not the thing that it's not the discussion I would be interested in having. You know, nobody's ever like, oh, like what's that about for you? How do you feel? Like what do you like about it? Like what have you noticed? Like does that put you like in an interesting position ideologically, like sort of in the minority, like, you know, maybe you're in position to like observe objectively some kind of societal things. Like it's never anything like that. It's like, oh, well, here's all the kinds of animals I like to eat. And I'm like, okay, you know, okay. So yeah, that's kind of a different angle I feel like if I just like came right out and said like I want to talk about like my experience as a vegan, like literally no one would watch this video. So I kind of tricked you into it. If you did, sorry it's so long. But it really, I mean, that could be a discussion, but it's kind of like this has been really crazy for me in terms of not even close were they getting me with these kinds of half-ass psyop things that they've been doing, you know, and what I'm supposed to experience like societal pressure because people on Facebook are going to be mean to me, you know, and call me a super spreader or whatever. I'm like you have no idea the kind of pressure that I've been under. Like growing up in the 80s, Beef Belt, Bible Belt, being in the military, being in boot camp, like the kinds of things that people have said to me and like the ways that they've looked at me, like I'm framed for them in this like completely, like I'm like what people think about me, their assumption about me is that I'm a super, super fragile, like emotionally fragile, psychologically fragile person because I just can't consider like, you know, God's dominion over animals and that we were put on this earth to eat them and apparently like, you know, industrialize their slaughter and like all these things. Like I'm the fragile one, you know, and you know, really it's quite the opposite, but it is what it is. And it's something that I really never talk about. I hardly ever talk about it. It doesn't come up. Nobody, I mean, it's not like my friends want to hear about it or anything. It's like if there's any subject people want to hear about less than Bitcoin, it's this. And that's okay. But you know, sometimes you just started a fucking YouTube channel and you want to talk about some stuff and like that's boom, that's what happened, you know. So yeah, I hope that you got something out of this. I was a little bit worried about being able to kind of like trace my thoughts on this, and to the extent that it's overly verbose and overly ornamented and anecdoted, you know, that's my apologies to you. But I do want to just, after having my much more polished professional like little stand-up version like canceled and deplatformed like a couple years ago, I'm kind of just like, I'm just gonna do my thing, and like if it hits it hits, if it doesn't it doesn't. Like how's this even my problem? I really appreciate the engagement, comments, anything of that nature, and I hope that you guys all have a wonderful day whatever you're doing. Okay, bye.